Welcome back, warrior friends. We are ready for chapter number 4 in our story Night of the Twisters, written by Ivy Ruckman. Chapter 4 is titled 7 o'clock. You may remember at the end of the last chapter, Arthur had spent the supper with Danny at his family's house. Supper's over. Dad's leaving to go out to the farm to help fix Grandpa's tractor. Mom has taken baby Ryan back to the back to try and get him to go to sleep because he's cutting teeth. We're ready for chapter 4, 7 o'clock. Arthur helped me do the dishes and fold the diapers that night. He didn't seem to mind. In fact, once he caught on to Mom's quick flip system, his diaper pile grew faster than mine. Mostly, we didn't talk while we worked. I think Arthur knew that I was feeling bad. I couldn't forget what Dad said, no matter how hard I tried to turn my mind to Stacy or something more pleasant. I kept hearing him say, "The sun doesn't rise and set on you." The truth is, I never once thought that the sun rose and set on me, so why would he say that? I shook my head and I carried the folded diapers down the hall to Ryan's room. Mom was rocking him to sleep, but she smiled at me and winked, as if she knew how bad I felt. A little while later, while Arthur and I were trying to decide if we wanted to ride bikes or hang around waiting for Happy Days on TV, Aunt Goldie popped in the kitchen door. She was wearing pink shorts and a frilly blouse and carrying a coffee can full of strawberries. "Hey guys," she greeted us. She held up the can before setting it in the sink. "They're from Mrs. Smiley's garden," she explained. "Where's your mom, DJ?" That's short for Daniel John. "She's getting Ryan to sleep. He's been a real terror all day." Oh no, she said, making a face. And then she bent down and she hugged me. It's not always easy having a baby in the house, is it? I was glad somebody understood. She peeked down the hallway and she came right back with her fingers to her lip. I better not disturb them. Linda would kill me. Now, I love my aunt and all, but I didn't want to get stuck having to sit and talk to her while Mom was busy with Ryan. So I made a quick decision and I got to my feet. Arthur and I were just leaving to ride bikes. Hey, wait, I tell you what. I just stopped by to borrow Linda's bowling ball. Riverside Lanes start tonight, and in case I can make myself go, she rolled her eyes. Do you know where she keeps it? Are you going to Mavis or to Westside Lanes? Arthur asked my aunt as I headed for the hall closet. Mavis, she said, but only if I can get out of it. I mean, I'm a dancer, you know. It's just not my thing. I'd rather stay home and straighten my hair. It was kind of a family joke. Blonde, curly top Goldie staying home to straighten her hair. She was always getting suckered into something that she didn't want to do. Aunt Goldie thanked me for the bowling ball and then she left the house when we did, but not before kissing me on top of the head. Be careful, or that wind'll blow you over. She warned us as she got into her car and she backed out. I could see what she meant when we hit the street. Even riding in my slick new Voyager head down in first gear, it was tough going. Arthur, on his dented up, hashed out, turned BMX, was practically standing still. Hey, let's go over to your house, I shouted, thinking about Stacy. Why? I don't know. I sped up so I could test my brakes. Arthur popped a wheelie and then squeaked to a halt alongside me. He spit into the wind and it splattered over on the curb 2 yards away. Some breeze. Hey, I bet you could spend the night with me, I said in the sly way I had of inviting myself. Well, why don't you then? My mom says that I shouldn't be the one to bring it up. Okay, so I'll bring it up. Would you sleep over, please? Arthur's face brightened, and I guess mine did too, because we were off pumping hard and laughing for no reason at all. On wheels again, I was definitely feeling better. We had nearly covered the 3 blocks between my house and his when the streetlights came on. With the sky all black and snarly, with the thunder the way it was, lights were popping on inside the houses too. Made them look like friendly little way stations in the dusk. I swung around the corner of Fonda Way and I waited for Arthur, who was still grunting and puffing a half a block away. I'll always be glad that I took the time to notice how beautiful Sand Crane Drive looked that night in the weird half light. Up and down the street, trees swayed in unison like dancers in a chorus line. Overhead, the clouds boiled so low you could almost jump up and grab them. It was unreal, all the creaking and the moaning that was going on. Arthur went on past me, pedaling left on Fonda Way when he should have gone to the right to go to his house. "Where are you going?" I yelled. "Come on, I want to show you something." I followed him past Aunt Goldie's, past Miss Stevenson's and the McWrights, and across the street Allison Hadd and her mom waved at us as they carried groceries in from their cars. "There's a big storm coming," Mrs. Hadd called out. "You better get home." Allison looked away, embarrassed. "What are we stopping here for?" I asked when Arthur braked at Mrs. Smiley's house. "Come on, you got to see something." We went up the sidewalk and we stepped quietly into the front porch of Belle Smiley's old house. Hers was sort of the place that on Halloween you halfway didn't want to trick or treat. It always looked so spooky underneath the giant cottonwood trees. "Arthur, are you nuts or something?" I asked in a hoarse voice. "You're not going to ask her for cookies." We had done that once or twice in our lives. "Don't you notice anything different?" Arthur asked, standing there with a dumb smile on his face. I looked around, but I didn't see much. It was dark as a skunk's insides on the porch. Then Arthur was pushing the bell. "I'll let Mrs. Smiley tell you about it," he said, and he pushed the doorbell a second time. There was a light on. Looked like she was back in the kitchen. "I bet she's turned her hearing aid off. Let's get out of here." Then Arthur pointed to the new aluminum storm door with a half screen on the top. "You got to be more observant, Dan." "What is this?" I croaked. "An IQ test?" "Yeah, and you just flunked." I could sense Arthur's disappointment in me, so I stood there observing Mrs. Smiley's old door the way he wanted me to. What am I doing here? I kept thinking. All I want to do is see Stacy Darlington in her natural habitat. But Mrs. Smiley must have heard us all right because another light went on inside. We could see her crossing the living room, sort of swaying from side to side the way that she does. She's just a little bitty thing with legs that look like parentheses. She walks funny. "Who is it?" she called as she came along. Arthur answered, "It's me, Mrs. Smiley. Me and Dan." "Oh my." She opened up the door. "Isn't this nice? Won't you two come in?" "Well, we're on our way to my house, but Dan wanted to see your new door." "I did?" Mrs. Smiley flicked on the porch light so that I could see it. "Isn't it a beauty?" she said. Then she demonstrated the lock and explained how the new door didn't squeak and it didn't slam and it didn't swell up. And it didn't get stuck in this kind of drippy, drizzly weather that we've been having. "Wow," I exclaimed, starting to be impressed. I pictured Mrs. Smiley's original door. Inside, a green wooden frame with a screen that had 14 patches on it by actual account, one of them dating back as far as World War II. She had sewn the patches on with different colors of yarn, which she said attracted the butterflies. "I sure hated to part with my old door," she sighed, "after all the years of service it gave me. But when my son came visiting from Ohio, he insisted." She shook her head sadly. "Why don't you get rid of that old eyesore?" was how he put it. Finally, there wasn't anything else to talk about, and the wind was threatening to blow her over. She made us promise to tell our mothers hello. I was supposed to remind mine that Mrs. Smiley would need to have her hair set Friday morning because of the Presbyterian Church Bazaar. "I only have 2 days left to finish my needlepoint cushion," she said, "but it'll bring a fancy price when I'm done." We started edging off the porch. "Come see me again," she said, and we told her we would. "Do you know what she did with that old door?" Arthur asked me when we got back on our bikes. "What?" She gave it to me. She did? That old thing? What for? It's a work of art, man. I really ought to worry about him, I remember thinking. At the Darlingtons, everything was as usual, chaotic. There weren't exactly the Brady Bunch, but they sure could have used a good maid like Alice. I stepped over Gwen and Theo, who had paper dolls spread all over the living room floor. "Don't walk on Prince Ragnar," Gwen squealed, covering the royal wardrobe with her fat little body. Tabby was practicing the piano, her fingers flying up and down the keyboard doing scales. Ronnie Vay was folded up in a big chair in the corner having a giggly phone conversation with some other 10-year-old. I looked around for Stacy, trying not to be obvious about it, but she was nowhere in sight. She pretty much lived with her friend Evelyn the way that Arthur lived with me. And Mr. Darlington was only home on Sundays, so I didn't even bother to look for him. He grows plants at Lewis Greenscape during the day and is the maintenance foreman at the National Guard Armory at night. Takes a lot of money, Arthur always says, to put food on our table. And that's where we found Arthur's mother, was at the kitchen table, pushing Angelique back and forth in the stroller, reading a book and eating potato salad all at the same time. I really liked Mrs. Darlington. She's one of those soft, cushiony types with a round face and pink cheeks who's as nice to her kids as friends as she is to her kids. Arthur headed over to the refrigerator, so I sat down on the nearby stool. "Is that a new book, Mrs. Darlington?" I asked politely. She always liked to tell me about her books, romances that she bought 10 at a time with her groceries. "Oh, yes, Danny," she said, shaking her head, "and I am so disgusted with it." "How come?" "I have read page 114 and still nothing's happened. I mean, by the time you get to page 114, something ought to be happening." She took another forkful of salad. "Old Shirley Merlot really let me down this time." "Hey, can I sleep over at Dan's tonight?" Arthur asked as he handed me a slice of bologna that was wrapped around a pickle. "Only if you're invited," she answered, and then she was off again, flipping to page 115 and looking for something to happen. And that's the way it was last summer on the 3rd of June. Without knowing it, we were all just waiting for something to happen. I guess that's life, huh? The whole world is waiting around to see what will happen next. But even Shirley Marlowe, who had sold 250,000 copies of love-searing romance, according to the book's covers, couldn't have imagined what was about to take place in Grand Island, Nebraska. Before Arthur and I got back to my house, television stations up and down the street were announcing tornado sightings in the vicinity. But some of us didn't hear the first weather report. Mom was busy sewing, and Karen Darlington was glued to her paperback. Mrs. Smiley was no doubt hunkered over her needlepoint. My grandparents, we learned later, were both out in the shed watching my dad work on the tractor. Grandma was delivering a pot of coffee to them about that time. And nobody knew for sure where Aunt Goldie was that night, or the next, or the next. That's the end of the 7 o'clock chapter. We're getting close to tornadoes. We know Aunt Goldie is gone, but we don't know where she's at. We'll have to keep reading to find out. Check back in with me next time.